Good evening, everybody. Hey, everybody. All right, we're just firing it up right now, making sure all of our streams are connected. All right, I think we got things going here. Hey, everybody. Good evening. I am Nick Slavik. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It is a weekly live show on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and a bunch of other places where I kind of showcase the life of a master craftsperson and a paint business entrepreneur. And as usual, you guys can ask any questions you like. You can suggest any topics you like. This show, it is goal setting and review week meeting. It is goal setting and review meeting week for me here at the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. I do this 4 times a year. So this is top of mind. I've been going at it. I've been streamlining this process, optimizing it for my people for years and years and years. I thought I would get on here and show you what I'm about to do with all of my people, one by one, individually throughout the company. We go through, we'll get into it a little bit here, but let's start off with some housekeeping first here. Number one, we got to talk about events, right? So there are tons of events happening all over the country. I have my page right here where the PCAs, I'm showing you the PCA's event page right here. We're opening registration slowly for these things here. We want to kind of like phase that out a little bit, but details are being added weekly about events. Sorry, I got to sneeze here. So, big events throughout the year. There's a link to this in my profile or in the show post as well too. But we have the Gathering of Minnesota Painters Summer Social, 25 July. That's coming up in about a week and a half, 2 weeks here. That's in Minnesota. We are the biggest gathering group in the entire country. We're very proud of that. We love our people, and we're going to all get together right here. Phil Klein, thank you. Said bless you. I appreciate that. We have the retreat, my retreat, coming up 13 to 16 August in the wilderness of Minnesota. That is full, but we'll be opening the registration for the winter one slowly here. PCA and Espanol. You can see that up on my screen here. That's this guy right here, September 12th to the 13th. That's in Anaheim, California. That is going to be awesome, guys. Get here. Get to these events. I'll probably be I think I'm going to almost every one of these this year, pending any family vacations. We have Tom Reber's Mile High Profit Summit, link coming out for that shortly. SoCal SurfPrep Masters class coming up as well too. I do this one every year with the beloved people at SurfPrep. Links to get there whenever you like. People are asking on Instagram when these events are. Folks, type into Google PCA paint events and you will get links to this. There will be a registration link in these whenever it is live, so you can keep coming back to that. There's a residential painting conference in Minnesota. Surprise, surprise, it's right here. Big surprise coming with that one. Can't reveal it yet, but it's coming pretty soon. It's coming pretty soon. Sam Chandler, you have a Pretty Boy Paint Fest. If you guys want to get any of these events listed through the PCA, if you partner up with us, we can get these on the website as well too. We have let's go back to this one here. The PCA Commercial Contractors Retreat as well too. That one's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona. That is going to be pretty nice, folks. You don't want to miss that one. We have the Gathering of Minnesota Painters, then our final event of the year, December 6th at the Graco World Headquarters. Sherwin-Williams is putting it on. We get to see all the robots making paint sprayers and things like that. It's an amazing time. And then, of course, folks, the PCA Expo. That's coming up early. Where am I? Expo. This is coming up early next year in February. We are going to the historic Broadmoor in Colorado Springs, and it is one of the fanciest places you will ever be. We got an amazing deal on this stuff. You will never go to a 5-star resort for this little price and have such an amazing event to go around it too. So it's absolutely awesome. So, all right, that's pretty much for events. If you want live master's classes in your area, I'm rounding out the schedule for this next winter when I pick up my travel again. You can email me and we can get a private master's class, a public master's class, anything the above right there. So, all right, I think that is enough of events for now. let's get into what everybody came here. So, number one, we got a whole bunch of people watching on Instagram. We got a whole bunch of people watching on Facebook. Take the time right now to pause, share this to your story, share this to your feed, and get this. Share these to all your friends. Get other people here, like-minded people like us. And tonight we're going to talk about goal setting and review meetings. One of the most interesting things about goal setting and review meetings is that almost nobody does them. The people who do them are inconsistent and they're not usually data based. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't run a company without doing these for a long time. I have been doing these for 6, 7, 8 years now, and it's a process, right? You learn. The thing that makes this the most difficult is that it is very, very human based. And you can look at the data, you can look at the process, but the problem is it's not a problem. The interesting thing about all this is that you are potentially messing with people's pay and compensation, and there are so many emotions involved about this. And so when I think about a goal setting and review process, about 20% of it, 30% of it is coming up with a system that supports the goals of the company, gives people an amazing opportunity that they can't get anywhere else, and then aligned incentives where when one person wins, they all win. That is very difficult, but it's only about 20 to 30% of what makes a good sort of pay and comp plan, review process, goal setting and review sort of thing. 70 to 80% of it is that human condition where you can pay them a ton of money. You can be super supportive. You can give them amazing opportunities for growth in the future. You can make work fun and less stressful. And sometimes people's personal lives dictate that they're not a good fit for your company or that they just need to go somewhere else. And doesn't even mean they're bad people. It just means that they're not a good fit for what you're doing and the goals of your company. And you're going to realize too that as your company grows and professionalizes, there's a lot of people that aren't going to grow and professionalize with you, right? There's a cowboy phase, cowgirl phase, and then there's the consistent professional phase. And not everybody makes it, folks. That's a fact of being humans, right? And sometimes the paint business owners don't make it either. So it's really, really interesting. So when I talk about these goal setting and review meetings, at the end of this, I'm going to give you my template if you email me. I will give you a bunch of resources, but remember, this is a human component, right? You have to be empathetic. You have to listen. You have to be a good manager, but you also have to hold the standards. There is a standard out there. And honestly, if you don't do it, nobody will. So with that being said, I am open to any of your questions. If you guys need any clarifications about what I'm going to show you, if you do regular goal setting and review meetings, I would love to know how you do it. Oh, Aaron Shaver. There we go, buddy. One of my old proteges down in Texas, starting his own business. Love following that guy. He is doing amazing things down there. So, all right, everybody, let's get into this mastering the basics, kind of a mini master's class right here. Goal setting and review meetings, Ask a Painter Live 424. Quick notes about some of this stuff. If this is not written down, it does not exist, right? Most companies, not even just paint companies, the review process is maybe the owner of the company sits down with you once a year, maybe not. If you catch that owner on a bad day and that person is grumpy, they're probably not going to give you that $1 an hour. If the person is feeling generous, they may give you $1 an hour. The problem is none of that is data-based. It's all feelings-based. And the problem is it's the feeling of the owner and not the human beings that you're actually reviewing. So one of the basic principles of all this is it has to be written down and your people have to have access to it. They need to see it. They need to see all their metrics and everything else. Another principle of all this is they need to take ownership of this. Or / you need to rate them on things that they can control, right? All these resources that I'm going to show you today are worthless without basic accountability. And this is probably the toughest part of just being a human, right? Personal relationships, professional relationships. There is a standard. You have to hold people to it. Now, making sure the standard is in a place where they can hit it with a reasonable amount of effort, but also supports the company goals and doesn't make any disaligned incentives and doesn't create any culture problems within where unfairness and things like that. And we're going to talk about that later. It's important to be consistent and not extreme, right? It's important to be very consistent with this, to plan them out for the year. People need to know when it is, where it is, why it is, what's going to be on there. And their data needs to match their feelings, right? So if they felt they really did good this quarter, and the data should match it, right? If you have the right incentives aligned there. There's a lot of times too where you're going to realize that some people believe that they are trying to move the world, and honestly, they don't meet the basic standards of employment. And those are typically the toughest conversations, because it is tough to reason with people sometimes if they have a very deep-seated feeling, but all the data points to they didn't even show up to work enough to even be eligible for employment. They may be losing their job when they think that they worked very, very hard. Both of those things honestly could be true, but you have to have a data-based accountability system for your company. And you also have to watch out for effects on the culture, right? So if somebody says, hey, I haven't got a raise in a while, I'd like a raise, and you give them some money, they will talk to other people. And then now other people will say, well, that's not fair to me. And guess what? It is not fair to them, right? If some people are being rewarded based on, merit-based pay, and some people are not, you're going to create some disaligned incentives, and you'll lose more good people than you will bad people at that point. So you have to be very, very careful with how you do this. It is one of the toughest things on earth, because we want to make happy people. We care about these people deeply. I love the people I employ, but when the standards aren't met, you have to be the one to hold up the standards. And it's very tough sometimes. All I want to do is make people happy. But in the end, if everybody else is happy and not me, this company is not going to be here, and all these jobs go away. So you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful without that. So Knox Painting, find more and more guys want to give a price for a job such as subbing than being an employee. I think that's great. That's entrepreneurship. Taking some, looking at some comments on Instagram before we go to the next slide. Please give advice to people who provide painting takeoff services from overseas. How do they get better at pricing? How do they find more opportunities? I've seen you in my feed before. I see a lot of people offering us these pricing services. The problem is, I'm going to be very honest with you, Hafiz Hamza. Most professional paint business owners in the United States do not have a metric or data-based pricing model for their business. So for you to measure a takeoff and apply some numbers to it, it's going to be wildly off compared to what's going on in each of these things. It is possible to get some numbers and put them on there. But the problem is, even in my business, there's about 42 different areas of pricing that I have. We look at it quarterly. Look at this. You see this? This is job costing for one quarter. I look at this and analyze it deeply for where I think we're overpricing, underpricing, pricing it right. Is the marketing right? Are our people performing? Is there a human element to all this stuff? So I'm going to be very honest with everybody who's providing these takeoff services and estimating services. I've tried them. The prices are wildly off. So in order for you to measure projects, provide pricing, and create a high value, you're going to have more real world based data coming in than this. You can't just throw a number at an estimate. So good luck to you. It's a difficult thing. Most professional business owners don't do it very well. And somebody who is probably not a professional painter or doing it from overseas and not familiar with the market or prices or things like that, or aren't talking to homeowners every day and getting rejected for the price, it's going to be just tougher for you. So it's not going to be easy. That's all I can tell you. It's not impossible. It's not going to be easy from Instagram there. So, all right. This is a human business. Don't ever forget this. There are very huge personality and risk and reward profile differences, not good or bad. This isn't a value judgment. There are differences in how people operate based on their biology and their upbringing and where they are in their professional life, right? So there's big differences between technicians and managers and leaders, right? And we're going to get into that a little bit later. The one thing I want you to take away is you are a manager when you do this, right? You can call yourself a leader. You can call yourself a CEO. You can call yourself a visionary, an entrepreneur, whatever you want. This is the role of a manager. And sometimes we need to take off visionary hat and put on manager hat. Years ago, when I started this company, I thought everybody would want to partner with me in this business. They'd want an ownership stake. They'd want to grow this thing and professionalize. Turns out some people just want a job and make rent, right? And I treated everybody like they wanted ownership and partnership. And that does, for somebody who just wants to start a life or get a solid base under them, is at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're actually doing them a disservice if you treat them like a potential equity partner, when really what you want to do is just foster simplicity, foster consistency, and just building a base of wealth, right? So you have to take off your visionary leader hat and you need to put on your manager hat. A manager is cold and consistent. I shouldn't say cold, concise and consistent. That's a more accurate word. You need to be consistent, not extreme. You need to be the tiny bit inspirational, right? You need to have the proper emotions attached to this sort of thing. Being positive, being upbeat, abundance mindset. You need to celebrate wins, right? Everybody's out there working really hard. We all are. And sometimes we only look at the things that are going wrong. That's the lot in life of a manager and a leader. Because if we just celebrate wins all day, all these things that are going wrong or need our attention just kind of float by and they accumulate and then they cause problems later. The hardest thing for a visionary or a visionary or a leader or an entrepreneur to do is to empathize, to listen, and to give a lot of grace, because we're seeing the effects when people don't hit the standards. It causes a ton of stress on the business. It causes a ton of stress for all the other people in the business and the entity and surrounding and even clients. And we want that stress to be shared by people, because there's nothing that's a slam dunk or easy. And if one person's skating by, not meeting the standards, getting plenty of pay, and everybody else is struggling real hard, maybe getting some pay, things like that, that stress gets transferred from one person to another. It accumulates in the people who do meet the standards. And sometimes it accumulates in the leadership team and the owners, and everybody else is feeling pain except for the person who should be carrying their brunt of sort of the accountability and the standards of this sort of thing. So it's when somebody is drastically not hitting the standards, sometimes it's very difficult to be patient and listen. But honestly, it's one of the things that I like doing the most with my people is connecting, listening, seeing their face, hearing their words. And it really gives me a good pulse on the business. So we know how to craft this thing and take care of everybody, right? And one of the biggest things that I see disalignment on sometimes is how we react as the people who have to hold accountability. It just has to be done, right? For the people who have to hold accountability, it's really, sometimes it's helpful to categorize what I would call a violation or something that doesn't meet the standards based on a technical violation or a core value violation, right? So if somebody shows up late to work and they're honestly trying really hard, they're not sleeping very well, they got a family to get going in the morning, and just some things accumulate and they're late to work, and they take ownership of it and they apologize for it and they apologize to their team for letting them down, that would be a technical violation. If somebody stays up till 3 a.m. playing video games, hanging out, being on social media, and shows up to work constantly and takes no steps to correct that, and then lets down their team every day and does not take ownership of it, blame, excuse, deny, then that technically would be a core value violation. And I say that because a technical violation means that somebody shares your core values and just something technically didn't go as planned, right? And so you want to lean in with empathy and kindness and understanding and support to help them understand or help them overcome that thing. But when somebody has a core value violation, it can be the same result, 2 people late for work. But when one person has a core value violation, you do need to come down pretty hard on that, because your other people are watching you. And if you do not uphold the core values of this company, the person who created them, they're going to look to you and say, wow, interesting. They must not be that important, right? So sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, because it could be one of those things where you don't know quite yet if it's a core value violation or a technical violation. And in some states, it's very hard for us, people who are leaders and actually care about their people, to figure that out, because in some cases, it's illegal to ask them the questions that you would ask to determine whether it's a core value violation or a technical violation. So sometimes we're kind of just standing there saying, God dang it, you're a good person. I think we share core values together. You need to fix some things though. Like, it's going to prevent you from either going forward or having this job in the future. And how people react to that is typically how it goes in the end, whether they take ownership or not of it. So it's kind of an interesting thing to watch along. But remember, this is a human thing. And to the best of my knowledge, it's about this, especially goal setting and review process, is about 70% humanistic and about 30% sort of the technical and the data. I'm a firm believer that people should be rated on the things that they can control the most, right? So there is the thing where we all have aligned, interconnected pay and incentive plans, right? I do not want one person to get a big win at the sake of another who loses, right? When we win, I want all of us to win. So this is how I've crafted my business. I really like to rate people, or at least let them get big raises or big bonuses based on the things that they control the most, because I want them to take ownership of it, right? So craftspeople in my company own attendance and job budget. So basically showing up to work, putting the minimal amount of hours in, and then what happens on the job site. Now, of course, they have to have support. They have to have the coatings there. They have to have the job set up properly. They have to have the clients with set expectations. But from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Thursday, they control what happens on that site. And those two things, what we're going to talk about most deeply today, are those two things. I have rated my people on a million things before. The longer I go on, I take more and more and more out of what I require them to do to get a raise. And now there's only two things that I require. You work a certain amount of hours and you hit certain amount of budgets every quarter. And honestly, that is the cleanest, purest way for them to get rated, because those are the things that they can control in the most in the company. Estimators are, they own scope and price. What are we painting and what is the price? They own those purely, right? Project managers, they are in charge of connecting craftspeople, clients, and the paint, the coatings in between, and doing it in the most efficient way, right? One of the biggest things they own is material for their jobs. So our painters, they don't get a raise based on how much paint they use, because they can't control the purchase and the procurement of paint. Project managers absolutely do. They get bonused on the efficiency of their paint. It shows up in the job costing, right? And then our office coordinator too. They handle estimate scheduling, project setup, and project closeout. So stuff that happens before we go on the estimate, stuff that happens before we go on the job, and stuff that happens after the job. So it's a little more of a mishmash of things. It's actually pretty straightforward, but that's how we think about ownership. And I think ownership, when people can actually affect the outcome of their goal setting and review meeting and their pay and compensation, you give them ownership and you give them agency to sort of take control of their own life. And I like that. I like that a great deal, right? So let's talk about where goal setting and reviews stand in the sort of ecosystem of all this stuff, right? I'll pause right here. Any questions, any comments you guys have? I'm monitoring Facebook right here for your questions, comments. I'm looking at Instagram. I know we're live on YouTube and LinkedIn as well too for you guys. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, I am here for you guys. Love the conversation. Love everybody watching here. This is absolutely awesome. Where does goal setting and review stand in the big scheme of things? So to me, the goals of the company, right, are standing in the middle, because if this company doesn't hit its goals, there's no jobs. It doesn't matter what you set as a comp plan. If the goals of the company aren't hit, there is no job, right? There is no jobs for anybody. So goal setting and review is part of a larger ecosystem where you got to have a job description. You got to have an employee resource guide, like an employee manual. You got to have some training to go along with it. And you got to have pretty rigorous job costing. Now, rigorous doesn't mean complicated. Rigorous means you just have to count material and labor for each job, right? Not almost everybody's pay and comp plan in my company somehow originates on job costing and is determined by the job costing. So that's tracking material and labor for the job. We have benchmarks for what it means to get bonused on a job, to have it be a job where it could work towards your potential raise every quarter, things like that. Yeah. And so it's part of a larger ecosystem. Competency and metric-based pay plan is part of that. Let's see. I think I have some examples of this stuff here. Yes, job description. So number one, when somebody comes on to this company, they need to know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to get paid, how they win, how they lose, things like that. It's important to set that proper expectation. It's important to have them sign it. It's important for them to have access to that and to understand it. So number one is employment basics. It does some FAQs, the keys for being successful, and most important, that it's very straightforward and you set proper expectations. So again, we can talk about what do you pay your people and how do you give them a raise? It's like, well, that's only part of the equation. You have to understand that the unsatisfying answer is that it has to start with a solid base of job description and other things like a performance-based pay system based on project budgets, right? So job costing is a after effect. It's a response to how the job actually went. It's not that satisfying to send somebody out there and say, do great work, work your tail off, and I'll tell you if you hit your budget or not, or I'll tell you if that's a good job or not. So we have to do a prediction, and project budgets are separate from job costing. We need to have a predictive, not a reactive sort of way of judging whether a job is good or bad. So before we start a job, what we'll do is we take a very simple sort of like math equation where we'll take the revenue from the project, We'll minus out 15% for materials because, again, the project managers get the budget for materials. We carve off all the rest of the revenue for the job, and we divide it by how many dollars per hour that this company needs to survive. And in my company, it is I haven't updated this slide yet, but it was 65 about 3 years ago. Now it's 75. We set our budgets where I want my craftspeople to create $75 of revenue an hour. Number one, it does one thing, which it just supports the company, all the overhead, all the uniforms, all the paint and everything else. But it also supports me being able to pay them a lot of money to be here, and an outsized amount of money based on the standards in this industry for them being here. So that's how we figure out that. Now, when you take revenue, you minus material, divide by $75 an hour, it tells you how many hours you need this project to be done in if you want to create that much revenue per hour. And so typically, on a $6,300 job, we have about 83 hours to do this in order for this to be a good job. Now, my pay and compensation plans, every painter in my company knows this before they go on site. 8 a.m. every day, we create a project plan to use those hours. At 3 p.m., we get an update. Are we hitting it? Are we not? And my people need to hit 75% of their budgets in a quarter in order for them to be eligible on a raise. They also need to work 500 hours, which is basically 40 hours a week, give or take. So training, again, job description, you have to have the pay and comp plan that's all written down, but then you also have to do the training along with it. So basically backed up by standard operating procedures. So you can see how intertwined this is to the ecosystem of your company. Just having a goal setting and review process with no standard operating procedures, no training, and no pay and comp plan isn't useful at all, if we're being honest, right? All these things have to work in together. Everything is written down. Everything is trained. Everything is transparent. People know what a win is, what a loss is, and they know exactly, part of these SOPs and the training and things are, if things aren't going well, if your people aren't hitting budgets, if they aren't, if we're getting callbacks on jobs, you can actually work through these SOPs in the training to figure out what parts are they doing the least well? What things are they missing? What things didn't they understand? Maybe what things didn't you train them well enough? And it's at least a checklist for you to go back and see that. Employee handbook is a big one too here. So an employee handbook feels very corporate-y, but it's actually like one of the basis, the bits of the foundation that make your people comfortable with working with you. So in my company, our employee handbook or employee resource guide is about 75% employment law, 25% specific to us. So think about our SOPs, our comp plan, things like that. I will say this, I have promised, and I know this is a bad strategy, that I never try to open this up and wield it against my people, right? As like a punitive thing. The way I created this and the way I use this is an informational guide for them. So instead of saying, you didn't do this, and here's the thing that says you have to, what it is here's an informational packet for you to reference so you can look there for answers instead of always asking the boss. Because it takes a lot of guts sometimes to walk up to an owner of a company. I don't overlook that and ask them a question like, what about bereavement leave? What about childcare? What time do I get off for that? For military leave, what time do I get off for that? That's all stated in this thing. And it's a big comfort to have, for people to have access to this thing that they know that they can just look in there and get those answers when they don't always have to ask the owner of the company, something like that. So I do get this reviewed by a lawyer each year, sometimes multiple times a year. There is versions of this where you adhere to the law strictly. There's ways where you can get a little gray area, and there's ways where you're way on one side of the good side of the law. Typically what I do is I start off with a basis of, what is employment law? And then I always think about, well, what would a decent human being do in some of these situations? Perfect example of this is in the state of Minnesota, it is perfectly legal for me to require overtime and fire people on the spot if they don't accept it. And that seems pretty aggressive to me personally. So we don't enforce that law, right? That is a law in the state of Minnesota. I could write that down and I could wield it. I could show up on a Friday and call an all company meeting, get everybody in here, work overtime, and everybody who doesn't show up, you're fired. That doesn't feel great to me. And it doesn't feel like it's the culture of my company. So there are things that we can do as bosses and leaders of people that are legal. But I would also ask you, is that the right thing? And so when I go step-by-step guide in my employee handbook, things like that, I always think to myself, like, okay, does this law help the company? Does the law help my people? Is it helping one person more than the other? I like it to all be copacetic. I like everybody to feel like this is absolutely fair. So there's a lot of ways where we start with the beginning of what employment law is. And then I usually go way to the one side of it and say, this feels fair. And this feels more decent human being-ish for me. So competency and metric-based pay scale. So here's the deal, folks. What we are known for is an amazing thing for our people, right? Objectively, this is an amazing opportunity for young people, especially with no life experience, maybe not a great job history or no job history, no education, things like that. People come into my company. Currently, I moved my rate up maybe a year or two here. We start people at $20 an hour for no experience. We put them through an apprenticeship program and we mentor them for a year until they can become a crew leader themselves. I offer 4 $1 an hour raises a year if two things are met. You work 40 hours a week. Literally the simplest thing on earth. If you show up for a job for 4 10-hour days a week, you get a whole bunch of time off. You get 52 Fridays off a year, 52 Saturdays, 52 Sundays, holidays, federal holidays, things like that. You're halfway there for getting 4 raises a year, right? The other part of that is you need to hit 75% of your job budget. So typically people in my company will do 13 to 18 jobs per quarter. If they hit the job budget on 75% of those, if you remember from middle school, high school, that is a C grade. I'm not asking for A. I'm not asking for Olympian level effort. And those project budgets are based on $75 an hour, which I would consider very low in the industry. So number one, I do this because I want my people to win, right? I want them to get up every day, enjoy this place, have low stress, like the people they work with, and I want them to feel wins. And that's why I do this every 3 months, right? So now what I have realized though, that people's lives can help or hinder them in this effort to do this sort of thing. So basically what I find out is typically my people average probably between $2 and $3 of raises per year. The average person probably gets about $2.25 raises per year. Very few people hit this all the time. A lot of times they take vacations and they're under hours. And if I'm being very honest, when you look at all my people for all the opportunities to get raises, half my people half the time miss it because they just don't work 40 hours a week. And I struggled with this for a lot of years, right? I sat here and I thought, come on, why can't these people just work 40 hours a week? And at some point, I just got over it and I said, you know what? Doesn't mean they're bad people. They're not stupid. They're not lazy. I care about these people a great deal. There's not much I can do to get people to come into work to do that, right? I'm not going to stand here and threaten their jobs. If they share my core values and they're a little bit light on hours, guess what? It's part of your comp plan. You're going to lose out on all these great raises over the years just by working 38 and a half hours a week on average instead of 40. It's just that simple. It's that simple. So I believe that we've crafted a really good comp plan here where it does give people a really good opportunity. And I would love to see another industry, another company, another somebody who does this for basically, entry-level employees. And this is what we're known for: apprenticeship, decent human beingry, all this other stuff. I love providing opportunities for people. It's one of the biggest joys of my life here. Absolutely, absolutely love this. Chris Rivera, Instagram, although hard to keep up. Yeah, man. Business owners, managers, this is what we got to do. We got to do the hard stuff, right? I believe if you want to have the best company culture, attract the best people, doing stuff like this that actually affects their life is great. Like us, we have to do marketing. We have to do branding. We have to do events. We have to do all that. That doesn't exactly affect them directly. So if we spend all our time on marketing and getting merch and getting our names out there, that's fine. We have to do that for the company, but that doesn't go into their pocket. If you want to take care of your people in the best way, you focus a lot of your time on what affects their pocket directly. Job descriptions, standard operating procedures, training, goal setting and review, support on job sites. That's what you'll do to make a great company here. So, all right, Chris Rivera. Nick, although hard to keep up, your voice has improved my way of overseeing my quality and my business and my family routine. Still feeling gapped, asking as constantly improving. Absolutely, man. That's just how it goes, man. Nobody's perfect at this, but if you love this, you're passionate about it, and you care, you're going to make right decisions, right? And our people aren't perfect. We're not perfect. And God, we just try though, just get out there, try every day. Do the best you can for as many people as you can, and just golden rule stuff over and over and over again. Mike Johnson's asking painter wage versus lead painter wage versus production manager wage. Those are 3 different things in my company. All my painters have the same pay scale, $1 an hour per quarter as they go. I do expect my people to be a crew leader after 1 year. right? And then train it somebody else. A project manager is on a completely different pay scale. They have a salary and then they have a bonus structure. So they can absolutely affect their wages based on the effectiveness of how they order materials, how they schedule painters, and how they interact with the client. So different risk and reward profiles, which we're going to talk to a little bit later there. Mike Johnson, I hope that helps with your question right there. One thing with my pay scales too, I used to lay it out at about 4 years. Now I lay it out maybe a year or two, give or take, depending on when people came in. But I like to lay it out and show some people the future too, right? Not just saying, hey, this quarter we're doing this. If I was that painter, I would say, well, what comes after this, right? Is it constantly going to change? And so far, for maybe the last 6, 7, 8 years, I've done this exact pay and comp plan and I haven't deviated. I've been waiting for the time where it didn't work or it disincentivized people. But honestly, this thing has kept my people moving. It offers amazing opportunity. It's challenging in all the right ways. And I believe it's set up a very good thing because when my people win, I win, my project managers win, my estimators win, and the company wins. There's never a time where an estimator wins at the sake of a painter and the painter loses, things like that. All right. Efren, my friend Efren, I would love to know who is responsible for checking competency models in a multi-level management company such as yours. A lot of big words in that, Efren. I think I need to know a little more about that. Give me a specific example. I probably have an answer for you, as always. And Efren, always great to hear from you, my friend. That's awesome. Okay, and this is kind of what we're talking about, which is it's been a probably 8-year quest for me to find a great way to incentivize all my people where one person doesn't win at the sake of another. And so when you think about the basic legs of the table, right? There's me, there's the estimators, there's production, the project managers, and there's the craft people. I would probably put the coordinator under production in there as well too. But they all prop up the table. You all want to have incentives aligned. And that's why I start with a base of all this of job costing. We have a standard in my company. What we consider a good job is 45% gross profit. That means we keep labor to 40% or under, we keep materials to 15% or under. That gives us 45% gross profit, which would leave us with 30% if we hit my budget on overhead, leaving me with 15% true net profit for what we create the entire year. You have to fight daily for this. This does not happen by accident. You do not trip over this. This takes constant vigilance, right? And constant. And that's why starting with your base of supporting your people first, your biggest expense in your company is going to be production labor, your craftspeople. I spend almost all my time thinking about that, acting on it, managing it, and supporting my people in that, because I know that if that expense gets out of whack, you change your feelings as a manager. You can get a little spicy when other times you can't. When all those budgets are in line, there's enough money to pay for overhead. There might even be something left over for you. You're a little more at ease and you can be a little more patient manager. So that's a big quest that I take on all the time. So here it is, goal setting and reviews. So you have to think about it being developmental and not punitive, right? So think about, yes, the data is there. Did you work enough hours? Did you hit enough job budgets? That's fine. But you always have to remember, again, this is a human effort here, and it has to be developmental and not punitive. So think about, hey, you didn't hit your hours this week. Is there anything I can do to support you? Were you sick for a while? Was there a family thing going on? Is there anything I can do to work with you to make sure that you get here for 40 hours a week all the time so you're eligible for this stuff? Project budgets. Is there anything that I can do to support you in hitting those budgets? Are you being supported enough by our project managers? Are you getting the right coatings and stuff when you need them? Is there anything that I'm not seeing on site that you're seeing that I can help you with? Just things like that, basic things like that. Now, and then we lay it out in a written format like this. So I like to have a really informational sheet, like when was your start date? What is today's date? How many jobs did you do this quarter? How many were good? And I actually have a list of those jobs, which we can go with something like this. Yep. So you see this here. We basically look at these jobs, all the jobs that somebody did, and then I basically rate them, good and bad, whether they hit the budget or not. And one of the things you have to start looking at too is a good manager will look at potential exceptions for people as well too. Now, the problem is you can't let this go too far. If half the jobs are being exempted, if 25% of the jobs have some sort of asterisk or exemption, I would argue you need to go back and restructure them. Your painters need to pull their weight, things like that, just to get those up there. But you always want to look forward to the thing where, oh my God, 1 out of every 125 jobs we will miss it on estimating. We have a beautiful, beautiful pricing model. Once in a while, we price something we haven't done before, and we just miss it on pricing. I will actually see that. I'll call that out to the team and say, hey guys, listen, this is not your fault. Painter, you performed well. Project manager, you performed well. Estimator, you just missed it on that one. So you guys get it blessed. The estimator, sorry, you missed it. And we can't give you, we're not going to bless this one on you. It didn't hit that gross profit number, so it's not going to be bonusable. Or there's been times, probably once a quarter, I look at, we probably do, I don't know if we'll end up doing 180, 225 jobs somewhere in there per quarter. And once in a while, I'll be like, you know what? Our pricing model just needs to be updated for that weird little project. Or there's a way that a client can pick it apart to make it a little frictiony for us. And then I'll actually say, team, listen, I'm going to take that one. I'll bless you guys in it. That's an okay job. We didn't hit gross profit, but that one's just blessed. It's an exception. I'm going to go back and change the pricing model, and we're going to get this right the next time. So again, that's taking ownership of those things, even at your level, which is not even. You should be the one taking all the ownership, minus the things that people control, attendance and job budgets, things like that. And accountability is big, folks. If we're being honest, most business owners are visionaries. Most business owners are salespeople. And what we are not is managers and integrators. And I've been training myself for a lot of years on this to be the supportive manager that my people need. And accountability is tough. Accountability is tough. A lot of times we get out there and we find ways. When we grow this business, there's nobody else here for us sometimes. We don't have a first line supervisor that we can go to and ask for help. We have to hold ourselves accountable. So we get very good at punishing ourselves, holding ourselves accountable, holding the standards ourselves. And you have to understand that some people haven't had that life experience where they naturally do that. Doesn't mean they're good or bad. It doesn't mean they're not capable of it. You may need to just be there for them to it. So that basic accountability, which is, what is the standard? What can I do to stand here and support you? And accountability is not, you did something wrong, I'm going to yell at you. Accountability is, hey, the standard wasn't met. Talk to me. I'm here to listen. What am I not seeing? What happened? How do we fix it the next time? Do you need any support? Is there anything we can do together? Is there anything you can do? Is there anything I can do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Open dialogue, listening, lead with empathy. There will be some times where people are not core value matches and they will subvert the standards and they don't care, right? But listening first will allow you to find that out. Most of the time, 99% of the time, people care. They really do care. And they're great people and they're trying really hard. And something just didn't go right, right? That's just how it goes. Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's their own actions. Sometimes it's lack of foresight, too much foresight, things like that. But just leading with listening, leading with empathy, and then making good decisions as a leader and just hoping to support them, right? All we can hope for sometimes, nobody's perfect, is that somebody is there to support us. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. And also, you need a bunch of data, right? The worst thing you can do is determine somebody's pay and compensation based on your feelings alone. The second worst thing you can do is base it on their feelings alone, right? You are going to play into that bad boss stereotype if there is no data, there's no reason, those people have worked hard, and you decide sometimes and sometimes not to give them raises. That you are making it too easy to be categorized as a bad boss, right? But having metric-based things where they can control their pay and comp, and you just administer it. I think, 2 days from now, I'm doing goal setting and reviews with all my people. I'm going to take my tablet, turn it around, show them their job budgets, show them their attendance. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with what happens on the site and them showing up to work every day. It is their data. It's their performance. They control 100% of that. And that's what they're going to see. And whether they take ownership or not, usually determines how much pay they get in the long run. So having that data is a big thing to help with that. Now, humans are scarily consistent with how they react to accountability, right? Typically, let's go back to the example of I'm late for work. If you say, hey, young person, you were late for work, talk to me. Some people will say, listen, there is no excuse. I just slept in. I will do whatever I can to not make it happen again. In fact, I asked my significant other to set their alarm too to wake me up. I'm so sorry. I take full ownership of that. That's one way to do it. The other one, below the line, is blame, excuse, deny. Listen, I don't know what you want me to do. Sometimes things just happen, right? I was up late last night. I was watching a show. What are you going to do, right? Oh, there was traffic every day. My third grandma died, things like that. People are scarily similar in how they take ownership of their own lot in life, right? They will take ownership. they will take responsibility, and they will take accountability, or they will typically blame, excuse, deny. Almost nobody jumps between the two. People are very, very consistent of above the line, below the line. Typically in my company, typically everywhere in life, people who are consistently above the line are people you can trust. Trust is my first core value. They are the right people in the right seat, right? People who blame, excuse, deny constantly are typically the wrong people, right? We distrust them. And being my core value number one, if you don't trust somebody, it's going to be tough. They're going to start affecting the people around them. And another reason you are a good manager and you're doing goal setting and reviews is to protect the company culture and protect your people who are excelling and things like that. So, right, Painter, I think you're a little too kind. This sounds like a dream. I worked for some horrible people over the years. Listen, man, we all did, right? You want to talk about working for a horrible employer? The Army is not horrible. I will tell you this, but I did have a federal contract with the government to be in the Army for 4 years. And if I decided to quit, I was going to jail, right? So you're talking to somebody who, even if I didn't like doing it, even if I didn't agree with the work I was doing, even if I was put in miserable conditions, I could not quit or I was going to jail. I have had the extreme of what this is, and I vowed to not craft a business like that. Now, for the Army, that is beautiful. We have the strongest fighting force in the world. I agree with that 100%. I love it. It's effective. It fits their culture. It fits their mission. For my company, I'm not making people sign contracts where they go to jail if they quit, right? I go way on the other side of that, which is I stand here, I listen, I empathize, I offer them amazing things for minimal effort, and I'm here to support them. And I love that system. I want people to excel. I want people to start families. I want people to buy houses, to buy cars, to lay down roots, to grow families, do all these wonderful things, have freedom, 4-day work weeks, family vacations, enjoy life, low stress, enjoy the people that are around them. And I think just offering people a big incentive is a thing like that. I was not offered a lot of this stuff. In a way, I was offered the opposite a lot of that. And I thought, you know what, the decent human being thing to do is to extend that to other people. And nobody's perfect, but we try, right? We absolutely try. So Nick May on Facebook, how are you, my friend? Now, risk and reward profile. One thing you're going to see, and this is not, I don't know if this is science, right? This is my experience. I deal with so many people. I mean, thousands of clients a year. We've had hundreds of employees come through this company like this. There are types of humans, and they typically have different risk and reward profiles. So if you break down, simplify your entire company and categorize people in 3 things: technicians, painters and craftspeople, managers and leaders. Typically, these people are 3 different parts of the workforce, and they have different risk and reward profiles. A risk and reward profile can be defined by how much immediate gratification you need, right? So typically, this is not all people. I don't want to overgeneralize this entire thing. This isn't a value judgment. This is just categorizing. If I had to place money on somebody having a low risk, low reward profile and being a technician, that would be good money. Likewise, leaders like myself having a high risk, high reward profile, you would put the money on that. That doesn't mean everybody's like it. And this is also not me saying one is good and one is not. Typically, what you'll find is that the younger you are, the less life experience, the less education, the less jobs you've had in your life, you typically want more immediate gratification. So even think about the younger years, babies, toddlers, things like that, almost pure immediate gratification. As you get a little bit older, you start thinking out into the future a little bit. You plan, I'm going to save for a bicycle. I'm going to work on my grades so I can get into college. I'm going to work through college, take on debt so I can get a good job. I'm going to work in this job for many, many decades so I can have this. What you find is that immediate gratification on a scale is very concentrated with the younger you are. And some people pick that up a lot sooner and they can invest and lay down a base and do things. But typically, when you look at a technician, offering them ownership in the company, which is a very long multi-year process, doesn't give them that immediate gratification. Not because they're good or bad, it's because they're not at the stage of life yet where they can appreciate or might be able to appreciate that sort of thing. You move up to a manager, and so I say that because a technician, a craftsperson, typically craftspeople and technicians like dollar per hour, or if they're subcontractors or trade partners, dollar per job. And typically a job is 1 to 4 days. Dollar per hour is immediate. You get paid every week. So really there's like a 1 week time horizon, maybe 2 week time horizon, maybe 30-day time horizon for a technician. What I find most of our trade partners and most of our painters and craftspeople really look on that 1 to 4 week time horizon, Managers look on these sort of like 4-week to 52-week time horizon. I would probably center that on, you might be looking at 3 to 6 months, give or take. And people can kind of like march between these. Some people have high and low traits and all this stuff. And then there's the cowboys and the cowgirls like me, which is, I could lose my house doing this, right? So there is not a painter in my company. There is not an estimator or project manager that could potentially lose money working for me, right? And it's set up that way. They're not supposed to. That's not their job to do that risk and reward. There's been times where I've went into debt to grow this company knowingly. It was a plan, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt in order to grow this company and a plan to pay it back. It worked out fine, but there's not another human being in my company that would do that. And I'm not saying they're supposed to. My name's on the company. If I want the reward that potentially could come with this, you're going to have to risk a lot. Technicians, trade partners, things like that are technically going to risk a lot less. They will certainly take a reward, but they're not usually willing to risk that. There's some of them that absolutely love that risk and reward and will do that, and they typically move through the scale. Our managers, higher level technicians, sometimes like salary and a commission structure where they have a little bit lower standard pay, like salary that they can guarantee, but then their pay is made up and they go even higher than most normal people because of a commission structure, right? So they can risk some, they can work really hard, and on a longer time horizon, they may not get immediate gratification, but over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and a year, they go way past the technician because they're willing to put in that time and risk without an immediate gratification. For me, I'm looking at the time horizon of 1 year to 30 years, right? And depends on where you are. When you're growing a company, you're looking at the 1, 3, 5. When you get into stable professionalization, you're going 3, 5, 7. When you get into a little later stage, 5, 7, 10, maybe even 30, give or take, like that. And I'm willing to not make money or even lose money for 5 years at a time, knowing that we're doing the right thing. We're having the right people. We're supporting them in the right way. The mission is good. I'm proud of what we're doing. I love my people, and it will pay off. And that's been the story of this company, which is, we've been in and out of profitability during the high growth phases of this. And that's normal, right? That's absolutely normal. But you have to have a plan to come out the other side. And supporting my people, investing in them has been a great thing. Has been a great thing for that. So in the end, folks, my email address, nick@nickslavik.com. If you email me, remind me of Ask a Painter Live, number 424, I think it is, goal setting and review meetings. I will send you a template of this thing. And it's basically my template too. You track hours, you track project budgets, and it lays it out on 4 quarters a year, things like that. Now, you have to do job costing. It's not going to tell you what to pay your people and whether to raise them or not. You're going to input the information into there, but it's a very clear multi-year document. It's a single source of truth where you can track somebody's employment and pay from day one and all through their years in the company like that. So I will stay on for about another minute here and see if we have any questions. Oh man, thanks everybody for watching on Facebook and Instagram. If you guys got any questions or topic suggestions, I am here for you. I would also ask that you guys take a moment, pause, share this in your feed, share this in your story, put this in the painter groups. Plenty of people watching right now. It would mean the world for me for you guys to do this. I would love to see you at these in-person events throughout the country. And I would really love for this industry to take care of its people more, right? Sometimes we get so wrapped up in the marketing and the accounting and just production numbers, top line revenue, vehicles, wraps, shops, tools, that we sometimes forget that we're doing all this for our people, clients and employees, right? And all your branding, all your vehicles, all your tools, all your apps don't mean anything to the people that you're paying. They're concerned with what affects their life, and it doesn't mean they're good or bad. That is a very human thing. Some people take a longer view, like us business owners. Well, we'll invest in things for years and years and years to get a payoff. There's a lot of people that we employ, the greatest humans on earth, that are going to need to see some immediate gratification. And the skill of finding a plan, a database plan at a certain interval that will give them that immediate gratification, but also meet the standards of the company is so important. It's so important. You're taking a 30-year goal for what you want for this company, and you have to boil it into, in this 3 months, how can I help this person meet their immediate goals? Their 3 months might be your 30 years, right? They may be thinking, I want to save up for a house. I want to get married. I want to buy my first car. I want stabilization. I want to put some money away for retirement. I want to take a vacation. You might be thinking about 30 years when you sell the company, when you have another leadership team and all this other stuff. And really, you have to, the goal of a good manager and a leader and a good company is that both your goals get hit. So, in any way I can help you guys, you know I'm here for you. This is one of the most difficult things I do. It's one of the most thrilling things I do. I absolutely love it. And because we care about our people. So, everybody for watching, thank you guys very much. I appreciate all this very much. Email me, nick@nickslavik.com if you want my template. And we will see you guys later this week for another episode. Thanks, guys.